Welcome to our fourth episode of Actions for Resilient Community. I'm Jen and I'm here with Cynthia, and we're going to take on part two of food and communities today.
Yeah, big one. A big discussion tonight. Saddle up.
We're talking about food security and food safety. So, food on its own, a massive topic, and these two are equally, if not as massive.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how much we can cram into our short little chat here.
Yeah. As always, like we're bringing this up because this is not a hypothetical situation. This is the reality we live in, and we're not aiming for perfection here. We're looking to normalize increasing your skill set as you go through time to enhance your own resilience and the resilience of your community.
Because, like we said, maybe there's not some big, grandiose world change, which could happen, could be a possibility, but maybe it's another Fiona, another storm, it's another climate related situation that we find ourselves in for a temporary amount of time that we still want to figure out how to get through, right? Could be any one of
Mhm.
those, which we'll walk through,
So,
talk through.
yes, we plan to go over three different scenarios for uh, situations you can find yourselves in and the ways we'd suggest responding and things to consider in those situations.
Yes. Uh, and I like how we always say we're, yeah, not attempting perfection. Like we were saying just before we went live here, we're like, oh, it's like, we don't know. We're just doing it. We're just talking about it. We're action oriented here. So,
We're having the conversation to move the
oh, you're frozen again, Jen.
a little conversation and other people will take up the cause.
There you go. You were frozen. Can you say that again?
Oh no. Yeah, I was saying that even if you don't engage in any more acts of preparedness, if you keep the conversation going, that could inspire even more people to take different steps and be more prepared.
Well, and as we say, even just the simple act of thinking all this through
Mhm.
and imagining the what ifs, forcing you to break down how we get to certain situations or how we get to a sense of safety and security, it forces us to be a little bit more mindful and
Mhm.
come back to that place of gratitude like, wow, yeah, this isn't all just a given.
Yeah.
So to come back to that place that we keep reminding ourselves we need to live in, which is awareness, gratitude. We are very lucky when things are ticking along quite smoothly.
It's easy to lose that awareness and that gratitude, especially when you're not practicing how could this be different scenarios in your mind once in a while.
Yes. So, um, I'm going to bring up, and then I'll hand it over to you. But I'm going to bring up the thing that in our little pre-chat yesterday I spoke about in terms of my love for survival shows. And one of the things that became really apparent to me watching those types of things where, okay, say you're left out in a remote area and you have to fend for yourself and find some food. Even if, say, for instance, you had the skills to take down some big game, if you had it available to you and you knew how to do it, what then?
Mhm.
What are you going to do with that deer? What are you going to do with that moose? How are you going to transport it? How are you going to do it in a way that it doesn't spoil and that you're not going to get sick? Do you know how to properly cook it? Whatever. So just, that's again an extreme situation, but it does come back to it's going to be those little details. Whether it's a week without power because of a storm or the grid goes down, well, how sad is it if the thing that takes you out is diarrhea, food poisoning? Like, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And this was knowledge that used to get passed down through the generations, and that link has been severed. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations and revive this knowledge in contemporary minds, because it takes very little to wind up in a situation where that knowledge really matters. And so we're gonna go through some different scenarios with the safety and security in mind. And food safety in this context is like the microbial count. Once that animal's dead, the decomposition process begins and other pathogens start consuming it. And like some of those pathogens, very toxic to you or secrete toxins that can make you very sick. Nobody wants to die of botulism. It's a really rotten way to go out. Not that that's necessarily the correct microbe to be talking about in this context, but there's a lot of them. And then there's the security aspect. So food safety is one thing. Let's say you've got hygiene, you've got canning, you've got preservation all locked down. You know those skills. You've salted what you can't store in other ways, and it's all set. Predators can
Oh, frozen.
areas or other things. Are you safe in a way where you don't have big animals, big game coming to attack you for the deer you just harvested?
Okay, so you froze again. Go back to where you said predators and then
Predators can smell you from a long distance. So if you're hunting, that it's not just the food safety that you have to consider, it's your actual security and whether or not you're at risk for other larger animals with sharper, pointier teeth coming to get what you've just taken for yourself.
mm, something we don't think of here in our safe little space, our safe little corner of the world without those big animals. But there's certainly other parts of Canada that have more of awareness of that type of thing readily at the front of their mind. But yeah, it's a thing.
Definitely. And even in terms of food safety and security, like your biggest threats are pests and as well as the invisible pathogens you can't see. But time and uh, environment matter a great deal, and having that knowledge on board before you're in a situation where it matters can mean the difference between like having a big harvest that sustains you for a while or having a big harvest that takes you out after a few days because you pushed it and didn't know any better.
Yeah, thinking about pests, thinking about our conversation with our friend about weevils
Mhm.
in your rice, even. So imagine you've got a nice store of flour, rice, whatever. What happens if it's full of weevils?
Yeah, it's not enough just to have the ingredients, you have to know how to protect them. And for dry ingredients, like a sealed container is always better than the plastic bag it came in. And for extra security, and let's say we have electricity, and this is relevant, you can put things in a deep freeze to kill off eggs that might otherwise hatch or other microbes that are temperature sensitive, and then take it out of the freezer and then store it in a sealed container. I'm a really big fan of mason jars.
Yes, I got a load of mason jars of all sizes and the little mason jar genie, the thing that you put on top that vacuum seals it shut. a bunch of oxygen absorbers. But going back to this idea of knowing what to do with it, the first time that I was using, okay, I had bought some rice, put it in the freezer for a couple of days to kill off any uh, pests. Then I'm about to put it in the mason jar and put my little oxygen absorber in there so that I can vacuum seal it shut. And didn't really realize that when you're working with oxygen absorbers, you got to move fast.
Right. Yeah.
You don't leave them out for, it's like, oh, okay, there's a whole system to this. I can't just open the pack and leave them sitting out there for an hour while I fiddle around and get everything else. Like there's a process and a way that you have to do it so that it's going to be meaningful and going to be useful at the end, right?
Yeah. That's one of the biggest transitions we have to make collectively as a society is we need to learn how to slow down and spend that time and effort in the preparation before doing the thing. Because we've all been raised in this culture of jump in, figure it out as you go. And when it comes to preserving food or food handling in general, it turns out so much better if you just slow down. Do less, like the less you handle food, the better. 100% of the time. If you can get everything set up and prepped, then it's going to go a lot smoother. You're less likely to cross-contaminate, having to leave the field where you're preparing things in, go grab something and come back. It's all these small details that stack up on each other and lead to success. And again, it's one of those things where you're never striving for perfection. You're never preparing or preserving food in a sterile environment. But the better you do, the easier it becomes to do better.
I really need to hear that because I'm so often finding myself with the pan heating up and the oil in there, and I haven't even cut up the vegetables.
Yeah, and then the experience goes from, like, I'm pausing in the rest of my activities today to nourish myself and sustain my family and make my house smell really great. It goes from that to, like, now I'm running from station to station, and then there's pressure, and this act of grace for your body turns into something that drains your energy instead.
I like that. Yeah, it's that balance of taking action to do the thing. But again, the more that you can keep that mindfulness, and one of my favorite quotes, which I talk about all the time, which is very applicable to this conversation, chop wood, carry water. Oh, you're frozen. I'm going to wait for you to come back here. I
You're
love
right, so we have
it.
inconsistent internet.
Yes, say that again. You went like this and then stay there for a moment.
You were frozen on my end. I was just saying that we have a storm on the island tonight, so we've got less than perfect internet.
Okay, yes. But yeah, that chop wood, carry water, and who knows how it's reading here to other people who are watching. Maybe we're not frozen and it's just me shouting at you. But um, I love that. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry
Good
water.
great water.
After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. In the one doing, do the one thing. If you're chopping the wood, chop the wood. If you're chopping the vegetables, chop the vegetables.
Mhm.
And if you can take pleasure in those simple, mundane tasks, wow, how much more rich your life is going to be, right?
Yes.
Be-
And accessing the choice to enjoy those moments puts more power back in your awareness. So you're able to more readily engage with your empowered self rather than your scrambling, surviving self.
Yeah, yeah. I need to remember that one all the time. I come back to it, which is to not begrudge the fact that I have to cook the dinner, to take some time and enjoy it. And one step at a time, get everything prepared, and then Don't jump ahead to the 10th step when you haven't done the first one yet.
Yeah. And then give yourself grace when you don't do any of those things and you just have an angry lunch making session, because it's still gonna happen. It's
Yeah,
just human.
it does. Um, I wonder.
Speaking
Sorry, go ahead.
speaking of the chopping wood, carrying water, the 3 scenes or 3 scenarios that we talked about yesterday all sort of began with that, like, what is step 1? It's heat and it's water.
So, do you want to lead a little thought exercise here?
Sounds great.
Go for it.
Alright, so imagining that there's a situation and they're really or potentially structurally damaging storm heading your way. And it's like one of those ones where the weather people are nervous and you don't usually see them lose their cool, but suddenly they're wanting to take time off to spend with their families. So what do? You get this news, you were just living your life, you have bills to pay. Where do you start? Water and warmth. That is task number 1 if you wanna start preparing, you will never be upset that you put water away and that you put, let's say, a couple changes of clean, dry clothes in a sealed container, in a sealed plastic bag, inside a bin, somewhere accessible to you where you'll be able to get out of whatever clothes you're in and get a full set of clean clothes back on your body. Those are the most simple steps I can think of taking, but they're an entryway into so many more things. Like, do you have water to flush? Do you have water to cook? Are you using a filter for your water because you either use the filter or you are the filter? And that comes to air too. So we've had more and more storms in the summer. Do you have masks for an emergency situation, for a bug out bag if you need to evacuate? Are you capable of filtering air and water en route? And what are the filters in your car like? These are the places I'd start.
So then let's talk about, uh, so for instance, the past couple of summers where, you know, again, maybe in our area, there's no forest fires, but maybe upwind, there's a whole lot of forest fires and it's coming down to us. And, you
It's
know,
true.
oh, yeah, the wind is really blowing. Speaking of storms, like, are we calling this in here or what? Now you're frozen again. We're just trading off. Um, yeah, forest fires, masks, water filters. So, okay, I finally got, like I said, I was riding dirty drinking city water here, but I finally got a decent water filter. But also the portable water filters, the life straws, have
Yeah.
some of those. So face masks that again are going to protect against forest fire smoke,
Mm.
for one, as an example, life straws, and what was your other one? The filters for, you said your car. Never thought about
Yeah,
that.
air filters. Yeah. They're just good to stay up on because you never know when you're gonna be in a situation where the quality of your air matters. And after storms, like, even if we're just talking about a hurricane coming through, it brings a lot of mold. That's why you tend to see a lot of blight and stuff arrive on tomatoes. You can actually wind up with differences in crops after you get a big hurricane come through because it'll just bring a lot of microbes with it. And some people are more sensitive to that than others.
Yikes.
Mhm.
I know, like, where my family lives in Australia, where they've had a lot of floods, and after the floods, because it's so warm, it's just like old
Mhm.
city. It's awful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
try to clean up with that. And if you don't have the proper masks or whatever to be dealing with that, ugh.
yeah, if we're getting prepared for situations where we have less resources than we're used to, we're already uncomfortable. So doing what we can in advance to ensure some comfort going forward always pays off. So let's say the storm hits and power's down. At this point, hopefully you've also grabbed some gas for your generator if you're fortunate enough to have one of those and you've test fired it to make sure it runs and will connect to your house and run your power. And failing that, hopefully you have enough people in your community that you can talk to where you're sharing resources, you know what people have and what they need, or you know about community centers if you're a person who can access those. So you're really covering your bases of like, where am I going to eat? Where am I going to be able to wash my hands? Maybe flush a toilet? How is this going to move for the next 48 to 72 hours? Because that's the first window of time to plan in, because after that, things sort of change and escalate really rapidly.
Well, and like we said, there's a real fine balance here of not going too far down the line with some of this thinking. But, I think it is worth noting, hey, yeah, let's assume that we'll have a warming center. Let's assume that there will be a community center that's going to have a generator. What happens if you don't? What happens if those places don't exist? Or we're out of fuel? Or the bridge has gone down here and, you know,
Hmm.
you could play out
That's
in a number of scenarios, at least having the the thought of like, oh, what would we do? What would we need to have on hand here?
what's the bare minimum to keep this going? And how can we meet those goals? And where are we at risk of falling short? It's really important to consider, because the more you think about it before the event, the better you're able to prepare and respond for the things that matter. Like I, for one, like having enough toilet paper on hand and Kleenex and rubber gloves. And these are just things that are important to me that I wouldn't necessarily expect someone else to stockpile or have after, but I'd like to have enough. And again, enough is like a reasonable amount for 2 people. I'm not trying to fill rooms with supplies here.
You can pry my bidet and my travel bidet out of my cold dead hands. A travel bidet is a little portable bidet is worth its weight in gold in one of those situations. But again, you got to have the water, right? You got to do that math. You go, okay, well, am I using my limited water for this? Or am I going to use,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
these are the types of what ifs that my brain will do, right? Playing out different scenarios, going, oh, okay, well, yeah. Even
yeah,
going back to like the food piece, it's like, when it comes to water, you go, okay, well, am I going to pick the thing that takes a whole lot of water and a long time to boil the water to cook if I'm in a power down situation, and I'm relying on either plugging into my solar generator uh, or my propane stove?
mhm.
Which thing is going to cook the fastest?
Yeah, what's most efficient and preserving your capacity to respond in the long run. And that's where the real big difference is between like, a storm where you're like, "All right, the supply chain's intact. It might be moving slower, but things are still flowing." And it might be a few days before I have power, but I can see that there are people out, like there is help here. We will experience a recovery of some degree. Your planning is completely different in that situation than it is when you're like, well, we're on our own for the foreseeable future and we have no idea what that future looks like. These are say we got like a category 5 hurricane and it took a piece of the bridge out, um, we would be rationing food immediately.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. We're really like food security here, and again, on the island is a real consideration for those things because it wouldn't take too many crazy, unrealistic scenarios to get to that position. Two winds are too high for however many days. Trucks can't
Yeah.
cross the bridge in high winds.
One boat hits a pier. That would put it out of commission until an engineering team could clear it or repairs were made, heaven forbid.
Yeah. Okay. So our next
So our next cheerful scenario.
well, yeah, there's that the bridge out. I guess that's kind of is the one that we're sort of uh, naturally getting to here. Is that like what do we do if the bridge goes out and the ferries, which are do we even have a ferry? Are they at all reliable now? Because
Right.
how many times are the ferries shut down anyway on a
Yeah.
good day,
Yeah, exactly. And then it becomes how much fuel do we have left on the island and who's going to get access to it?
right?
So it would become important to factor in that you might be on your last amounts of electricity and what do you want to do with it? If you're fortunate enough to have a generator in that situation, or if we still have power at that point. Say like a boat hits the bridge and the bridge is out of commission and the ferry's out of commission because it just generally is. And we don't have anything coming, but we still have electricity. We're still in a situation where we have to be counting down to no power. Just because the lights are on doesn't mean that's stable, but it becomes that much more important to prioritize long-term planning at that point rather than like the small stuff and the immediate and responding. Um, People who can preserve food are going to be very important in a situation like that, if the situation allows for that to even be taking place. Because if this happens in January, what food?
If this happens in January, what food? But if this happens in January, at least you can keep your food cold.
Yes,
If you
exactly. There
get food,
and looking for the silver lining, if things have gone sideways and you're really reaching for resilience, reaching for that silver lining is an important skill to foster as well. That's that awareness piece.
right? It's like, okay, well, we might not have very much food, but at least we can keep it preserved easily. But, you
Exactly.
know, then again, it's not necessarily secure if it's
Mhm.
outside because
Exactly.
my propane
Everything
is stolen.
oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, and everything with sharp teeth and no thumbs is after it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, the the this is on my list of the canning, the salt. Like I wouldn't even know. I've got salt here. What do I do with it? I don't know how to like preserve stuff with salt. Like, whoa,
It's so much easier than you think, but it's really intimidating until the first time you do it. Because the last thing we want to be doing as we're learning to preserve is destroy food.
that
Having a scale makes a big difference when you're starting off. Once you've been doing it for a while, eyeballing it's okay, but like preserving with salt, you're usually doing a lacto ferment, like making sauerkraut. And our last episode actually has a recipe, the formula for it at the bottom. And then when you're water bath canning, which is like the one that doesn't require specialized equipment, you don't need the sealing thing that goes up to high pressures. If you're just water bath canning, you can do anything that's got a lot of vinegar or acid in it and anything that's really sweet, like jams. because it's the chemistry of those that makes them safe long term in combination with being boiled at temperature for some amount of time. It's a very Once you do it, it's a very straightforward process. It's just messy and involved. It takes a lot of time, and it's usually an annoying night in a hot summer kitchen when you'd rather be outside at the beach.
These are, this is on the agenda this summer and fall is gotta add these skills to my repertoire because again, it's not something I want to be learning how to do when I absolutely need to be doing it and my resources are like, this is all I have, can't screw it up type of
Mhm.
situation.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we venture to the EMP scenario?
Okay, so an EMP could happen for a lot of different reasons. It's an electromagnetic pulse, and it could be the result of a solar flare, or it could be the result of any number of human-driven reasons. But it will interfere with the circuitry in your phone. It'll overload it, not just your phone, any circuit, any metal, copper is especially vulnerable, and it is a grid down permanently situation. You're looking at rebuild. So decades. And this is not a likely scenario. It's just one that is possible and important to consider. So, what would you do in your community if suddenly electricity was gone for the rest of your foreseeable future? We're a lot more reliant on fuel, literal fuels like the gas we have left, the propane we have left, and wood. And then cooking over an open flame becomes really important, but so too does disposal of the food you can't save for your own food safety reasons and for food security reasons because you don't want to be calling in um, the predators or the scavengers that would be eating the food that's spoiling. The very first thing I'd do in a situation like that, if my house wasn't on fire from having copper wires in it, would be take all the food out of my freezer, knowing my freezer will never be useful again, and start pressure canning it in the backyard if I could still get my stove to work. And the reason I say if I could still get my stove to work is there's pilot light in it to ignite the flame. And if I can't get that to spark because everything's been melted, it could be a little bit difficult getting fires started. Matches are a good thing to have.
Because even a lighter? No, a lighter would
Well,
be fine. But
yeah, uh, unless
yeah.
unless it melted.
Well, yeah. And you said that this was like a thing that had happened, what, in the 18, what was it, 18 something?
18 something, the Carrington event happened. It was the result of a solar flare that made a direct impact with Earth. It was an X something solar flare. I don't think it was beyond X20, but anyway, they happen on a logarithmic scale. We've recently seen single digit X flares. That's why we had all those beautiful northern lights a couple of years ago, or just over a year ago. It was responsible for geomagnetic instability at Earth so great that you could see northern lights in the daytime as far south as Chicago. And telegraph was a new technology then, and telegraph wires were going up all over North America, and they melted. They caught fire and they melted because there were the take melting
Okay, sorry, you froze. So it said they were melting and
and catching fire.
oh, okay, okay. Just melting and
Yeah,
oh, okay. Worst case scenario. Yes. Okay,
yeah,
good. Good, good, good. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And your pumps don't work anymore because there's fire and no electricity.
I mean, yeah, like we said, I mean, I suppose like we were talking about Gaza, and it's like, what are they doing there with no electricity? But this would even almost be one step worse if you could imagine that, because even their phones wouldn't work. It would be absolutely no communication, nothing,
Yeah. The only thing would be there'd be no drones overhead anymore. They'd get that relief.
right? Yeah. Again, silver lining. But
Yeah,
it's like these aren't pie in the sky completely. I mean, like you said, not likely necessarily, yeah, not necessarily super likely, but it's not impossible.
they're in the field of probability. You and I have lived through more than a week's worth of uh, power loss in the last, was it? Yeah, the last 5 years. Hasn't been that long.
2023 was that Fiona?
I think so. Yeah, 2023.
It was like a solid 14 days where I am
Yeah, yeah.
in
And
the.
I was 10 days, which was a miracle out where I was. It was just luck that we got connected that soon because reconnecting us meant they could move on to the next grid.
Wow.
Mhm.
And thinking back to the water thing, um, I'll often, when I'm grocery shopping, just pick up a couple extra jugs of water because it's what, $1.50 for a great big jug of water. And I don't know, we're on the city system here now, but there's nothing to say that because luckily, even during Fiona, while it wasn't hot water, it was still flushable and it was still available. Not like folks in the country who are, you know, on a well and not on the sewer system. So even I'll have that water because again, I don't know that there's not going to be something that's going to contaminate the city system.
Yeah,
Not a bad idea to have the water just in case.
it can move with you too if you need to get on the road.
Yeah. But then that's where the life straw comes in handy
Mhm.
because to take enough water that you need for however many people, for it's like your small vehicle, or if you don't have gas for a vehicle, your bicycle and your wagon that you're pulling or whatever, it's going to get filled up pretty quick. So you can only take so much of that too, which is why the portable filter becomes, and then like you say, sourcing, where would you go? Where would, like, I don't even know if I would know a freshwater source here,
That might be something we should talk about the next little while.
right? I'm
Figure
trying
out.
to think off the top of my head, like, because I know where the water is. It's all salt water. It's the ocean. Thinking,
Mhm.
where would I even go for? Like, I do know of a one weird place in Sherwood, but I don't know if that's,
I think I
you know,
used to throw rocks in that when I was a kid.
you know where I mean.
Yeah.
But okay, is that fresh water? Would I have I got?
Yeah, I'd be real careful with it. I'd filter, boil, but yeah. This
Glory
is
be.
why it's important to engage the curiosity now, because if you have this knowledge on reserve and things are getting really challenging, you at least have that piece of confidence you can reach back to and say, ah, but I figured that out already. I know what to do about that. I've been in a few life or death situations at sea, and not once have I ever been like, man, I wish we did fewer. safety drills. Like
Yeah,
we really wasted our time on all those fire drills. I First time I was on a boat that caught fire, I was like, we should be doing those daily. We should just do it every day. It's annoying. It's fine. It's great to have that practice on board.
it's so true, right? Again, the muscle memory. It goes back to, I said this in class tonight, the more that you're able to practice these things before you need to actually know how to do it, prenatal yoga, okay, the more that you can figure out how to move your pelvis in all the ways and understand the ways that it's a little bit stuck, understand like how you need to move it so that you can access that when you need to get a baby out of it, the better than trying to figure that out and going, oh shoot, I can't move this way, and learning that while you're trying to deliver a baby. Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
wish that you had a thought about that. Or how do I not search out here for something to hold on to stay calm? How do I walk the path to the center of my being and hold steady within myself and develop a relationship with my thoughts that I'm not going to freak out when I'm in a super duper high pressure scenario? If you practice that, if you go to that place often,
Yeah.
you know the route. You already know how to get there. So this is why we have the practice. This is why we are constantly, how do I get to that spot? So that when I need to go there, it's like almost automatic then.
That action becomes unconscious.
Yeah. So it's really, and I'm always looking for those parallels of on and off the mat. And it's exactly what you're saying right now, which is, let's think these things through. Let's think, okay, what are you going to do in that scenario? Because you're better off to think of it now than you are when you're trying not to panic.
Yes. Yeah, and we're not trying to instill any panic in you now. We're bringing these up so you can think about them in a calm, slow, and deliberate way. We're not asking you to do more. We're asking, can you do well with less? And how can you prepare for a situation like that so that should that need arise, you can respond to it with your best foot forward?
Yeah. Um, that's it, because you don't, it's exactly like I just said,
Mhm.
you don't practice yoga in, or say, for instance, prenatal yoga. We're not simulating uh, childbirth every time that we do the class.
Yeah.
We're simply focusing on holding steady, finding your breath, do all that. And then it becomes, when you're in that situation again, you're not, it's like you don't need to mimic the hurricane to prepare for the hurricane. You don't need to set
Exactly.
on fire to practice the fire drill, to put it simply.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh.
Well, what do we think?
I think that's a wrap on part two, safety and security. We've highlighted the ways that things will be the same no matter what, and the ways things can be dramatically different in the situation, and how even if you're preparing for a situation that may not arise, being more prepared in the present moment gives your future self less to handle. And it's always a good endeavor to attempt to be your future self's best friend. There is one hot tip I left out that I really wanna cover before we
Let's hear
if you take a plastic jar and put water in it, like, fill it 2/3 of the way full, put it in your freezer, and then you take it back out frozen, put a coin on it, and put it back in your freezer. In a power out situation, if you're able to fire your generator back up and then go in and check your freezer, that'll tell you if the food in your freezer was likely to have thawed. Because if that coin is still sitting on the surface of that ice, you know everything in there stayed frozen.
And if it's
Throw that food out. That
that
was the difference in Fiona between me having to throw out an animal we'd recently had butchered for us and getting to eat it later because we were able to confirm everything stayed really frozen.
with your little meter, homemade meter.
Quickly.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to think these things through.
Yeah.
And if I can say one last thing, you know, I often find sometimes conversations with people when they start to think about these scenarios, it becomes so overwhelming for them. But again, like we just said, better to do it now, but also it doesn't have to be this completely overwhelming situation.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't do it perfectly. So start where you are and do it one thing at a time. And don't rush yourself if there isn't a storm barreling down on you. Like there is a time for hurry and bustle, and then there's a time for just letting your brain know it's okay to absorb new information and change habits.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure. I'm always learning stuff from you, Jen.
I got you. Thank you for doing this with me.
It's lots of fun.
We'll do it again soon.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Take care, everybody.
See you soon.
See ya.